Okay, hi guys, Ramsey here, and today we have a quick first impressions video from a house that I already did a first impression on one of their fragrances recently. And so this is a return first impressions video, which is a first for my new channel. Today marks the 1 month anniversary, by the way. I started it on December 13th of my channel, so thank you very much for everyone supporting me in the first month. And basically, the reason I started this channel is because I was sick and tired of the average Fragcom content that was getting put out there. I saw someone sent me a lineup of recommended fragrance videos, and mine was on there with a bunch of other people's videos. And I was laughing at the time because, you know, their videos were 2 minutes and 20 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then mine was an hour and 8 minutes from my LVMH video yesterday. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys my first impression on this because I've gotten some pretty good feedback from my previous first impression videos. This one is going to be a tough one for me to give you a first impression on because it's a house that, as a fragrance lover, as a fragrance connoisseur, I really think that this house should get more love, even though I didn't give as much love to Vanille Havane as some people in the community did, and that is LesIndemodables Ambre Suprême. Now, this is a new fragrance that came out last year, 2021. It's 2022 now, but it came out towards the middle of 2021. So it's only been out for a few months now. This is a 10 ml decant that I have. And these are not cheap, but they're not very expensive. This house kind of feels like a new Frederick Mall house to me, actually, now that I really think about it, because, you know, they are very passionate about what they do. They care about the art of perfumery. They use fantastic ingredients, top-notch ingredients. And one thing I should say before we start is when you see the name Ambre Suprême, if you don't if you're not very big into perfumery, you might look at this and think this is an amber fragrance. I was reading some Fragrantica reviews. There's not very many on this yet, by the way, but I was reading some, you know, reviews that people were saying, oh, this is a disappointment. This is nothing like Grand Soir, or this is not an amber, or did I get the wrong fragrance, or whatever it is. Understand that the amber in Ambre Suprême is referring to ambergris, not amber. And so if you go in with the correct understanding of what this fragrance is, I think you'll appreciate it much more. Ambergris is also known as gray amber. And I made some notes. I just wanted to talk to you about the ingredient because it is a very important ingredient that does not get used very much nowadays. And the brand actually claims that they use the dosage on the ambergris in this fragrance is 10%. Which is huge for ambergris. In one of my recent videos, Shifras, I was telling you that oak moss is now restricted to 0.1% of the formula. So if they're using 10% real ambergris, and by the way, that is the proper way to say it, either ambergris or ambergris. There's a channel out there called The Etherealist. Galen runs it, one of the Fragcom members, and he basically interviewed one of the guys that wrote a book on ambergris, and it's not ambergris, it's ambergris is how you're supposed to pronounce it. That's what he says the people in the trade call it, so you're supposed to pronounce that S, whether you do ambergris or ambergris. So I say all that to say that it's a very important ingredient because it comes from a sperm whale. Let's find some English words here, Ramsey. And basically what scientists think happens is that these sperm whales eat these creatures. You know, they eat these, you know, these stingrays, or they eat, you know, cuttlefish, or these different kind of creatures that have some sort of part of their body that the sperm whale cannot break down. And in natural defense of the sperm whale's intestinal system, it creates what's ended up called ambergris. And biologists are still in argument about whether the sperm whale vomits it up or whether they excrete it out the back end. But long story short is they excrete this material. It floats on the ocean, sometimes for years, months, decades, hundreds of years, however long it takes to bob up and down in the ocean and reach shore. And while this ingredient is bobbing, it's picking up all of the scent around it because there's an ingredient in ambergris called ambrine. And it's one of the only known ingredients on earth that can lock in a scent and basically hold it forever. That's what they believe. So some French perfumers way back when figured out that if you put ambergris inside of their perfume, it affixes the scent to your skin and it makes it last longer. Now, the thing about ambergris is because it comes out of a mammal and because it floats in the sea for years, decades, hundreds of years, who knows how long some of these things can go before they actually reach land, it picks up all of these different scents and different facets. It's a very multifaceted ingredient. It can be salty, it can be minerally, it can be fecal, it can be animalic, and it adds this depth and complexity. It basically makes a fragrance go from something that's one-dimensional to something that has this increased depth to it, layers. And it tends to highlight fragrances. So if you put lily of the valley, if you put, geranium, if you put clary sage, if you put all these different ingredients into a perfume, ambergris like shines a spotlight on it. It makes everything pop. It's like putting a pop star on stage and turning on the bright lights. That's really what it does to a perfume. Now, we have been taken advantage of a little bit by these big companies, and due to the fact that the world's population has exploded and restrictions on, ambergris use and stuff like that, most people aren't familiar with real ambergris. Most people are familiar with what's called ambroxan. Now, ambroxan is actually a component of ambergris that can be broken down when you actually break down ambergris. Let's see, I made notes here. Let me see if I can find what I said here. So ambroxan is basically when you break down this ambrine molecule of ambergris through oxidation, you get ambroxan. So ambroxan from real ambergris is a real it's a real ingredient, but it can be synthesized in a lab, and that's what these big companies and flavoring houses started to do. They started to synthesize ambroxan. So when you hear about blue fragrances and you think about ambroxan, most people are thinking about the synthetic molecule, but there is actually a real ambroxan that can be pulled out of real ambergris, if that makes sense. And smelling the real thing, I will tell you that no matter how good the synthetic may be, no matter how correct the chemical compound may be, I don't think they can take into account all the different facets of what ambergris does as it bobs up and down in the ocean. Or they can't take into account the different things that the sperm whale ate. There are videos of perfumers actually breaking open pieces of ambergris on the internet like this and saying, wow, that's the most animalic piece of ambergris I've ever found, or wow, that's the most salty piece of ambergris I've ever smelt, or whatever it may be. That's the most animalic, it's the most salty, it's the deepest. They all smell different. And so, coming up with something in a lab can never get you to the real thing. And this is where this perfume is unique to me. Let's get to the perfume a little bit. So I have a 15-minute dry down here. And I have a 5-hour dry down here. And I will tell you that it is a very long-lasting perfume, but this is not something that's going to reach out and touch you. Most people that, this is not something that's going to reach out and scream, I should say, and touch the people who are around you with some insane beast mode scent. If that's what you're going for, do not buy this. This is for somebody who wants to experience ambergris in all its facets. So basically, what I think about, what imagery I see when I smell this scent. Initially, it smells a little bit floral, but you can tell there's something underneath, something sparkly. I told Rich Mitch today that it actually reminds me of staring out into the ocean, goes on forever, and imagine the sun sparkling off of the waves as the waves kind of just move along the sea, and you're standing there staring at all this. That's the mental imagery that this fragrance gives me. It's almost like smelling, the scent of life. Literally, that's what it smells like. I was actually thinking today, imagine if there's a piece of ambergris that is picked up from hundreds of years ago. There could have been creatures alive in the ocean that are now extinct when that ambergris was picking up all these smells. I mean, imagine all the crazy stuff, the depth of that. You could take that to a really deep intellectual place. And so this, I think, this is not going to be a hit for the brand, I don't think. I think that this is going to be more a hit with the perfumista crowd, the people who really understand how special and how rare ambergris is. Imagine seeing like a still pool, and there's flowers floating on top of that still pool, and there's a little bit of jasmine, there's neroli, there's even an immortelle note in this fragrance, which is very unlike most immortelle notes you get. You don't get this huge hay-like facet here. So the notes, according to Fragrantica, are clary sage in the top and aldehydes. You get big aldehydes in the top. Mixes with that ambergris. There's pink pepper, cardamom, neroli, Moroccan jasmine, patchouli, and then the base is immortelle and ambergris. But if you look at base notes, it only says ambergris. There's no other notes listed. And Antoine Lie, who's the perfumer for a lot of the newer LesIndemodables, he basically says that, this fragrance is to spotlight the different facets of ambergris. And so this is, I think, for somebody who, wants to really sit back, analyze a perfume, study it, study the complexity, get to know how it changes in different weathers. Rich Mitch said this is the ultimate blue fragrance. And I see exactly what he means, because, ambroxan is now synonymous in our brains with blue. But this is unlike any ambroxan fragrance that you will smell. I mean, it's completely different. It really is very pleasant. There is that ambergris part of it that adds a little bit of depth to just it's not just a boring, pleasant smell. It's pleasant, but it kind of intrigues you. It draws you in. It changes. It's a shapeshifter. I still think I would wear this more in the summer, just because my tastes in the winter are a little bit deeper. I like the heavier, boozy, tobacco, oud. I like stuff like that when it's cooler. But this brand deserves more of a spotlight. They really deserve to be looked at further because of the quality of the ingredients, what they're trying to do. I mean, 10% ambergris, and I don't know, that's not 10%, I don't think, of the alcohol. I think it's 10% of the entire composition. So it is a very brave release. This is not going to be a hit. I think that most people that smell this are probably going to go, and just chunk it. But if you give it time, I think this really develops into something beautiful. I think for the fragrance connoisseurs, or for someone that's kind of getting into fragrance and they want to experience ambergris, because, you go by, somebody who's first getting into fragrance goes and buys Bleu de Chanel, or they go buy Sauvage. They're getting ambroxan. They've never smelled ambergris in their life. They're not smelling, 30-year-old Creeds. They're not smelling, Atlantic ambergris from Arige Ladori. They're not smelling those kind of fragrances. Whereas this, I think, is a little bit more available. It's not as exclusive as something like Atlantic ambergris from Arige Ladori. And so this is something I think that might appeal to someone who is trying to study different notes and study different facets. And it's hard to find a good ambergris fragrance to really study. I think Creed's Viking, the original, the bottle I have is a 2017 release. I think that has a fantastic ambergris note in it. There are some older Creeds that used to have that sparkle that I think they used to use real ambergris before the quality kind of went downhill over the last 7-8 years. But this is something that I think if you really want to study what ambergris does in a perfume composition, if you want to take something that might seem very simple on its on its basis, you might look at this and go, this is very simple. Only ambergris is listed in base notes, or there's only a couple florals and some aldehydes, in Fragrantica. But as you study it, and in my first wear, I will tell you that it is definitely worth considering, especially if you're going to buy a blue fragrance. If you have some money to dole out and you're going to buy a blue fragrance, I would definitely recommend sampling this first over going and buying Sauvage. Even that new Sauvage elixir that they have on the market, you're going to spend close to $200 anyways. And I think they're only giving you 60 or 80 ml or something, 70 ml, I don't remember. But why do that when you can go get this for $260 for 50 ml? And you're wearing the real deal. You will smell very unique, and this will give your nose something to pick apart as time goes on. It will give you something to study, break down, understand how ambergris actually works in a composition. So for me, I think my first impression that people ran out and really bought was the Teatro alla Scala from Krizia. I enjoy wearing that a little bit more, but I really appreciate what this does. And, highlighting the note of ambergris in a world where everyone, 99.9% of perfumes, if it lists ambergris, it's not real. It's fake. It's ambroxan synthesized in a lab. So if you want to experience something amazing, something unique, something that is, rarely used nowadays due to cost, everything is premium with this brand, but you don't really pay premium prices is what I like. They're not cheap, but when you consider some of the prices some of these brands are charging nowadays, to get 50 ml for $260 is a very good price. Now, I have to say that I bought these with my own money. This was not sent to me by the brand. This is not something that is endorsed. These are my feelings on this perfume. And so if you take the angle when you wear this, that Ambre Supreme, it's not an amber, it's gray amber, it's ambergris, I think you'll really appreciate it. I mean, what can you say? How can a person like me describe ambergris to somebody who's never smelled it? It's like, trying to describe color to somebody who's blind. It's almost impossible. It is such a beautiful note, and it is so complex, so deep, so introspective. It's the story of life. I mean, it literally is the story of life in the ocean. Getting to wear something like that turned into a beautiful perfume composition. So, Antoine Lie, bravo, sir. Very glad to have this 10 ml decant. Will I buy a full bottle? No, I won't personally. But, and it's only because my collection is so large that I have so many other fragrances to go wear. But I am very glad that I got this decant, and I'm very glad I got to experience it. And I think that not enough people are talking about, some of these releases from LesIndemodables. I know Vanille Havane gets hyped to the moon, but for me, I think this is a more interesting composition than Vanille Havane. Even though the notes in Vanille Havane are more to my liking normally, I have so many other fragrances that do what that does that this is unique. So you have to give them a round of applause for stepping out of the box, doing something original, and putting together a fragrance that is very hard to do in today's mass appeal environment. Everyone wants to be the McDonald's, and they just want to pump out units and sell as much as they can. And this brand is putting out something that a fragrance lover, I think, can really appreciate. So that's my first impression. Obviously, it's positive. Not positive enough that I'm going to run out and buy a bottle. But I love what this does, and I love what this brand is doing. And I will definitely try to continue to sample more. So thanks for watching this first impression of Ambre Supreme from LesIndemodables, and everybody have a great day. Cheers.